Hey everyone, welcome to episode 4 of building my recumbent trike. I've just been doing some vacuum forming, finally, on the inside of a bike. Just put a couple of layers of 160 gram carbon over the floor mount here, and now I'm going to start on laying a few sheets over this bit. I've been leaving this for a couple of minutes, probably about an hour now. I've got spare left over in a cup that started to tack off, so I know this is good because I've had heat on it as well, so I can at least demold it and then peel the peel ply off and then just leave it as it is for now. But I'll do that and then I'll get stuck into this. That'll fit inside it actually, so I'll cut another piece of plastic that size and then tacky it to the other side, and there you go. I'd save another bit of bag because I did have one cut for this, but I won't do that now. I can just do it straight in here. How good's that? It's a perfect fit. Just got to make sure the tacky doesn't stick to itself, because then it's never going to come apart, like ever. Once it sticks to itself, that's it. So I had the vacuum pump continually running on this part because I was pulling vacuum through the glass and the Kevlar underneath. The edge is stuck down, so it bit of a resin sort of leaked through. You can see it's a bit glassy up right up to the tacky tape edge, which is the resin seeping out. So these fray bits on the edge, they'll be stuck down real nice. I've also stuck the sticky back Velcro down. I had to glue it in because it wasn't sticking well to this surface, even though I put some glue down on it, where it sticks fine to this type of surface, like the straight carbon. Not sure why, but yeah, I've stuck it down with glue and then I've put the other side onto the little box. So I just smashed out both of these parts today. The bottom brackets stay down to the bottom of the bike, and then this is the boom down to my groin. Neither of these parts are my best work. You can see it's not very neat at all. And this one's even worse. Look at that. Ugh, horrible. But I'm not worried about looks on this bike. And I can trim this up fairly well. Like I can trim that edge off and it'll still be strong enough. This part's still a little bit soft and I've been trimming it with a Stanley knife. It's a lot easier to trim when it's tacky still. The carbon doesn't splinter and you don't get splinters in you when you slip. It just like slices rather than sort of you have to like hack through it. So yeah, that's pretty good. That edge I'll probably leave all of it, and then next thing to do is put the bottom bracket mounted up and glue it in, and then I can start laying glass and carbon over the top of it, bond it back down a couple of millimeters, probably like 100 millimeters, and get that fixed. And then what I can do is sort of position this in place and then just keep trimming bits off the bottom until I get it the right height in the bike. So this will be like sticking out the front and I can tilt it up and down until I get it to the right height. So this weekend's been quite successful, those two parts, and the vacuum form in the mount on the bottom and the sticky bit for the siren too. So looking forward to what this week brings. So the main idea for this bike is to have it as a commuter bike, so I can ride to work, and also go on longer rides. I demand a lot of water and nutrition when I'm riding. I cramp up a lot, and if I ride for more than like 50 kilometers, I'm just wrecked. So if I want to go on a 100k ride, I'm going to need a lot of food. So I want to build storage into the bike, and a good spot for storage is in the front of a bike. So pedals are going to be about here, legs are just going to be missing that, and the front little boom's going from here up to like here, which is where the bottom bracket is. So this whole space in the front, there's nothing. It's a bit awkward to get to the front of it, and I'm going to put the battery down here somewhere for the light, so that's kind of wasted anyway. But the space between the wheel arches and the side here is not being used, so I've got a bit of plastic. It's not sticking, it keeps coming undone. So what I'm going to do is stick this down and lay some Teflon tape around it and all the way across here, and then I can make a carbon fiber piece that goes there, pop it off, take the plastic out, swap it to the other side to do the other side, and then I can glue that piece back in. And I have shoes right here, and when you're in the bike you can just go like that and chuck your shoes in, and there's actually that much room that you can nearly lay it down flat. So it's going to be heaps of room in there, shoes and clothes or food or whatever. Plenty of room inside the bike for storage. I've demolded the plastic from the part. It's just held in with some neodymium magnets at the moment, but I'm going to mark where I want it trimmed and then trim it and then glue it in. Yesterday I trimmed and glued this side in. It's glued about that much down, a strip that much connecting to this, and then it's glued all along the bottom and up to here. And if you look on the inside, you can see a bead of glue all the way along the inside there. So that's going to make it easier to clean out if I spill anything in there. And I had some leftover resin when I was laying up this side, so I just painted it with resin so it's nice and smooth, so if I do spill anything I can soak it up and it won't soak into the Kevlar or anything. It won't leave a wet patch or a stain. So I glued that yesterday, and then this morning before I went to work I trimmed this up and glued this side, so now they're both attached in nice and solid. Right now I'm just measuring out where the idlers are going to go for the chain line. Going to have a front one here, right where my arse is, and the chain line should go from under there just clear where the mechanism's going to go for the what do you call it, front wheels. So the steerer bearing, it should just miss that coming up to the top, and then from the bottom going from there straight line to the top of the smallest chainring. I'm going to have a double chainring on this bike, and then from the bottom of the chainring it'll go to an idler next to it to go back to the rear of the derailleur. I'm going to have the second idler tucked right up in here, and from there it's a straight line following the curve or the back of the bike up to the top of the chainring, and then dropping down to the smallest chainring, and then from the bottom of the derailleur, which will be like barely missing this, straight line going underneath or maybe even over that one, and then following underneath the bike as low as possible. What I would like to do is have like a built-in channel inside the bike where the chain line goes. It's going to be pretty hard to make, but that's the dream, is to make a channel where the chain line can run up and then come down here from the bottom of the derailleur. You can't see. Coming here from the bottom of the derailleur, it should clear. I'll sort of etch out the bike, and it should clear underneath and then slot back into the little channel. I'll make like a U-shaped channel that'll house all the chain line, and then the bottom of the bike will just have like one layer of carbon just to seal everything in, so the chain line's not even exposed to air. And then on this side as well, it'll go probably through a slot in the little U-shaped, or the little arch, bow-shaped arch. It might go either under it or through a hole. One tiny little hole won't make much of a difference at all in the structural integrity of it. That way, by having the chain line run as low as possible, I can get my arse as low as possible, and the separation between arse and body nearly perfectly the same as what I've got in my streamliner up there. So I'll be training in nearly the exact same position, which from what I've found, the seat angle is a little bit lower. This is like a 25, where I've run like a 32.5 or 33 degree seat angle on a streamliner. This does change the geometry, the ergonomics of putting the power through and different muscle groups and different the cycle through the pedal stroke. It's a little bit different, but it's not that different. It's not a huge difference. I can still get perfectly good power. It just feels like I'm not pushing like square, I'm sort of pushing down rather than like across and then through. So in the streamliner, I push like my knee and my ankle are in line. It's basically horizontal. They're basically horizontal when I'm at the top of a pedal stroke. And then as I come through, where this one, it's sort of, my knee is above, so it's a little bit higher. So I'm pushing, I'm doing, you know, the bottom bracket's a little bit lower. It's not quite the same, but it's pretty good. The streamliners, the pedal pre bikes that they race, they're really like this. It's like you're sitting on top of the bike. It feels so weird. I don't like the feeling of it. I don't feel like I can get as much power, anywhere near the power that I can get out of a streamliner. You'd fatigue a lot more in a streamliner because you're pushing more power and you're like really pushing out like a leg press. Whereas the pedal pre bikes, you're sort of doing a more like ankle and then like hamstring power stroke, which your hamstring's not as strong as your quads or your glutes. So I find the more upright position works a lot better. The internal shape of this bike, I intend to do, I was going to do as a monocoque, which I'm not going to do now, but the internal shape, I'm basically going to try and have the same shape as the bike. So it like slots in perfectly, hugs the body of a bike. It doesn't like allow the bike to like vibrate around. So if you hit something, it's going to impact the body and then impact onto the frame of the bike that's built into it. So it's a lot stronger. It's not going to flex all the shell of the bike. So my good mate Charles, he suggested a really good suggestion, which is how he did one of his bikes. I think it was the Macquarie bike, which they did like a shell and then an internal structure to support the shell of a bike, which is pretty much what I'm doing. He said the best way to do that is to just lay tape down. That sticky tape doesn't work sticking to this Kevlar, but this vinyl tape that I got from Larry Lem, thanks Larry, he gave it to me for my streamliner, that one, to tape the roof down in 2019, but I ended up just using the normal hockey tape that we all use. So I've got plenty of this left over. A lot of the rolls have gone like all crappy, so this one isn't, so I'm going to keep this roll, but the roll over here that I have, you can see it's like, it's going a little bit like sticky on the edges and it's not like the greatest anymore. So what I'm going to do is stick that as a lining in the bike, then I can lay carbon into that, and then I can pour foam into that while I sit in the position. So I can have this channel sitting here. I can lay the carbon and then put the channel in, and then like all the mounting points and the mounting bolts and stuff mounting bits of metal for the bolt to go through. I can put all that in, ready to go, and then I can lay foam in with me sitting in it so I get the exact position I want, and then I just pop it out, and then I just start carving the foam, like cut out little window here for where I'm going to do a notch for where the bolt's going to go through or whatever, and where I'm going to have like storage compartments in it or whatever, and where the chain line's going to go up and through. I can have all that mocked up, like sitting in position ready, so when I pull the foam it's like molded in and around it. So that's such a good idea, and which is pretty much what I did with sticking the plastic down for this storage container here. It's stuck perfectly on it. I laid the carbon on it, popped it off, and the part turned out like it's a wet layout, so it's not the best, but it turned out so good. So I'm going to lay a bit more of this in and just see what it looks like. Look, this has been in for like a week and it's still sticking. Look at that. Yeah, it's going to work perfect. So then you get like the perfect shape of the bike. Just made these little molds. Well, it's not fully finished yet. It's just a bit of styrofoam that I carved out. So that'll house both idlers like that. And it's wide enough to accommodate two side by side. So I'll lay some glass over this and sand it flat, fill in all the holes, make it like dead smooth mold, and then I can vacuum form carbon over it, pop that piece out, and then I have the mold. And what I'll do is I'll vacuum form little squares of aluminium in here, so when I size it up I can drill straight through the aluminium, so I've got something like tough to bolt to. And then I'll put the carbon piece in the bike, square it up, and then I can lay like little bits on the edges here just to hold it in place once I've got the bottom in, and then I can pour foam over that. So my ass is going to be 30 millimeters off the bottom of the bike, which is pretty good. Cut out a little foam piece for the middle here to join the two halves together, and I've got 2 layers of like 160 gram fiberglass on the bottom with a bit of resin, and I'm just weighing that down now so I can get a solid base for laying a glass on the top half for when I make the mold. In the bottom of the bike here I have laid some vinyl tape in 2 directions, first this way and then that way, but this direction's only a strip about that wide. And then I laid the Teflon tape that I have just to give it a little bit extra thickness in strips, 100mm strips this way. It's coming off the bottom of the bike by like 2mm just here, but I'm not too worried about that. But so what I did is I laid the tape down, got the Teflon, cut carbon, put some resin in, and then put the peel ply over it. So the peel ply will give it a good finish for when it peels back. It'll give it a good finish for bonding the mold that I'm gonna vacuum form into there. So it'll give a good bonding surface, but it'll also absorb a little bit extra resin. So you can see all this is wetted out. That's where it's overlapped here. So there's a strip like that. And yeah, so even though it's just peel ply, it's not absorption material, it's still going to absorb some resin. So give it a better ratio than being completely soaked like this. This is just like soaked in resin, which is not the best. So for the size of a carbon, I cut 700mm by 700mm, and then I cut out the corners here, just slotted it like that. So the sheets, the roll of carbon that I have is a meter wide. So the 300mm strip that was at the end, I cut it in half and I laid it in a 140mm strip down here with 2 layers. So there's 3 layers of carbon here, one layer of carbon here, and then those two bits that I cut out I just put here and here back to back just to strengthen it up a little bit more in the middle. So this ridge down here is going to be quite stiff to carry the force of the idlers, and it'll also be reinforced with the mold. But on the other side here, I was thinking to even up the height, so when I sit in the bike and fill it full of foam, I'll just do another similar one to that, just lay carbon over a 30 millimeter high, 40 mil wide I think it is, bit of foam, just lay it in here and vacuum form that in. So I've got like two ridges down the middle, so that should strengthen it up. Then when I sit on it and pour the foam to foamophil around my body to get it perfect to the shape of my body, I'll be able to sit flat on the ground, and I won't have to like chock it up on the other side or anything. Just finished cutting the holes and trimming the edges on this second wheel cover, and that is just starting to tack off a little bit. I think it's time that I started sizing this up and mocking it up to glue it in. You can see I've got a mark in the middle, and the critical thing is getting everything lined up. So when you're pedaling, you don't want to be pedaling like this or like that or anything. Like, you just want to be pedaling straight, obviously. So that's the center of the bottom bracket. I've got to line that up with the center of this, because if you tip it to the side, you can see the cranks are at an angle. So then to get the boom, if you get the boom straight down the bike, the cranks are going to be an angle, or if you want to crank straight, the boom's going to be bent. So I've got to get that square there. I've got these blocks to make it even. The blocks have got to be pretty much the same height, about there, so the cranks aren't, you can see it bends a little bit, so the cranks aren't further one side than the other. And in this direction, you want it pretty much lined up with the back of this as you're gluing it, so you know everything's also lined up in that direction. So it's going to be a hard task, but I think if I take my time and use the laser, which I did on my streamliner, and that's pretty square, I reckon it'll work out pretty good. Got the laser down the middle, got the bottom bracket lined up with the middle. I put the ruler across the front here and made sure that the two timbers were parallel with the ruler, and that it was parallel with this, and they were all touching. And then I pulled both of these cranks up to the position of a ruler, so they only just barely touched. So it is good that way, then it's good this way. Hopefully I'm going to take a measure off this laser line up to the bottom of a crank on either side, just so I know for sure that it is perfectly level that way, and it is good that way as well. You can see where I've just bogged the glue around it. So what I'll do after that's set, I'll take the bottom bracket out, and I'll lay some carbon over it and then vacuum form that on, and then I can put this other piece, attach it to it where it needs to go, but I'll have to size it up in the bike first. This bit's tacking off real nice. Just starting to tack off. I've ordered a rear hub for the wheel, so that should be coming next week. So then I can start stringing that up and getting all that mocked up. Then I can figure out where my chain line's going to go, how my derailleur is going to sit, and yeah, start organising the chain line with that. So I'm going to finish that off next, but that'll be in next week's episode. What I'll do now, after I leave you, is probably silicon that in and start looming the wires up for the re-indicators and the power for that. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. See you next week.